So there's something that I've been wondering to myself, all right? So apparently, all right, which keep in mind, it would be illegal, like not legally binding, to try to push somebody into a gag order with the, you know, specific factor of it to not say a peep or not wanting to hear a peep from someone. Now understand, with saying that, trying to say that the person's not allowed to talk at all. All right? Now understand that would be a First Amendment violation. And ultimately, if I was opposing counsel in the situation and we were in court, people are trying to, just get a whole bunch of cross-talking conversations going, I'd be objecting and asking for the relevance and the grounds of, the assumption of the constitutional basis of said gag order and potential ramifications of said gag order being violated. All right? Because, to be blunt, you have to know that you're breaking the law in order to go ahead and be able to lock somebody up, while at the same time, you got to give them a chance to question and ask on what grounds. All right? On what grounds, is that contemptuous? Not to mention that, but on what basis would a gag order attempting to push somebody into intentional mutism, on what grounds would that be considered conscionable and legally applicable, in a court of law, on a state level as well as a federal level? All right? Not to mention that, but ultimately, when it comes to the whole, social media factor, apparently sharing posts of what you're watching is apparently vocalizing, and public engagement. And it's like, all right, so if I'm sharing something on social media, under the presumption that what I am sharing is factual, all right? Because it is within anybody and everybody's capability to be able to lie, especially when they have a vested interest, that they are close enough that, it could look like a mishandling of the law, or personal enrichment, personally beneficial and gainful, and reckless abandon of the legal basis. All right? So, that being said, it's like, hey, I just heard this. I was paying attention. I'm just engaging in a debate. I am listening to what other people are saying and going ahead and trying to put myself in their perspective. Okay? So in that circumstance, would end up asking, how is that doing something wrong? And if you do not like what I shared, because you don't agree with the opinion, therefore want to execute litigatorily on a criminal basis, my question is, on what basis is it a crime to have an opinion? Regardless of how much it's being regarded, on what legal basis is it criminal to have an opinion, going ahead and sharing to the debate or public discourse that I'm going ahead, absorbing, internalizing, and weighing out every implication that, if factually valid, could end up causing ramification-wise down the road. I mean, I believe that, that's something. It's called learning. It's called education. Oh, I believe there's a place that usually happens. Doesn't have to specifically be said place, but I believe there are places that believe this to be a good practice, called schools. You know, so ultimately, with doing that, mean that getting an education is criminal. You know, not to mention that, but you know, going off the basis, factor that ended up getting mentioned as far as, Torkington threshold, from listening to Midas Touch before. My question is, if having the legal grounds to be able to go ahead and file, all right, in a court of law, without the potential of it being considered frivolous, unconstitutional, unconscionable, unfounded by fact, which ultimately means speculation, or rumors, or hearsay, which could end up going ahead and removing somebody's presumption of innocence, which is supposed to be guaranteed to everyone, within the judicial body of the United States of America. Ultimately, how is not going ahead and discussing about the ramifications of something so hypercritical and specifically and targetedly drawn out to be molded specifically to one specific person, not be viewed as an overbroad scope that could potentially go ahead and draw conclusions or negative inferences, therefore diluting the faith in the legal system. You see my point there? That's what cannot be disregarded in any type of, for example, thinking of potential policy, thinking of law, the application of law, the constitutionality, the attempt of going ahead and making it a quote-unquote local ordinance, or a locally held belief, based on no basis of, the initial complaint, presented and docketed within a court filing, to actually have enough grounds to not be considered an overreach or a potential prosecutorial misconduct basis that could end up going ahead and causing into either recusal from the biased party, the request of a dismissal due to the unsubstantiated factors of the legality of the attempted quote-unquote confession, with disregard of, the state of mind that was regarded, whether inebriation, whether, temporary incapacitation, whether potentially in some form of pain that could be used as a leverage in an attempt to coerce the person to make a decision that potentially, should they act on said demand or order, would be demanding them to go ahead and commit a criminal act. Well, the defiance of said order in itself is an admission of, I am not attempting to commit any criminal acts. I do not want to commit any criminal acts. I am here talking instead of going to do something that could potentially be criminal. And I'm here debating because of the fact that, as of right now, under what seemed to be the presentation from the Department of Motor Vehicles, saying that my license is temporarily suspended until this situation is cleaned up in a legal, diplomatic, and tangible way that could be agreed upon in a form that is so substantiated in fact that it could be deliberated on by a deliberative body, that their job has been appointed by the powers that actually give them the qualifications to be able to execute that job. You know? Even if at a independent contractor or deliberator or arbitrator in a sole capacity for, and condition of getting specific matter decided in a quiet, mutually beneficial, and diplomatic way. That's just what's going through my mind, I mean, if I was filing it as far as in a court, it would literally be, what makes you think you have the right to try to ask this of me? And if you ask this of me, if you're not going to enforce this and explain how this would be enforceable and how a judge in front of an entire courtroom with a 12-panel jury would be able to say that this in any way actually meets the threshold, well, literally, the reason that you're going ahead and approaching things in the way that you are is because of the factor that the accused ended up being proving the wrongful basis or the grounds to come and draw the conclusions that were drawn due to the dishonest and opportunist nature which the dispute had been established